Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada here in his sacred darshan room in Vrindavan Dham. So as always, we'll offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So for all of you online, you can turn to chapter 13, The Stealing of the Boys and Calves by Brahma. So you can also note the subtitles at the bottom of your page if you're online, and this will help you to follow along. Shukadeva Goswami was very much encouraged when Maharaj Parikshit asked him why the cowherd boys did not discuss the death of Aghasura until after 1 year had passed. He explained thus, "My dear king, you are making the subject matter of the transcendental pastimes of Krishna fresher by your inquisitiveness. It is said that it is the nature of a devotee to constantly apply his mind, energy, words, ears, etc., in hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness, and for one who is rapt in hearing and chanting about Krishna, the subject matter never becomes hackneyed or old. That is the significance of transcendental subject matter in contrast to material subject matter. Material subject matter becomes stale, and one cannot hear a certain subject for a long time. He wants change, but as far as transcendental subject matter is concerned, it is called Nitya Nava sorry, I can't see it. Yes, thank you, my glasses. This means that one can go on chanting and hearing about the Lord and never feel tired, but remain fresh and eager to hear more and more. Yes, Nitya Nava Navayamana. It is the duty of the spiritual...
It is the duty of the spiritual master to disclose all confidential subject matters to the inquisitive and sincere disciple. Thus, Shukadeva Goswami began to explain why the killing of Aghasura was not discussed until 1 year had passed. Shukadeva Goswami told the king, "Now hear of this secret with attention. After saving his friends from the mouth of Aghasura and killing the demon, Lord Krishna brought his friends to the bank of the Yamuna and addressed them as follows. My dear friends, just see how this spot is very nice for taking lunch and playing on the soft sandy Yamuna bank. You can see how the lotus flowers in the water are beautifully blown and how they distribute their fragrance all around. The chirping of the birds, along with the cooing of the peacocks, surrounded by the whispering of the leaves in the trees, combine and present sound vibrations that echo one another. And this just enriches the beautiful scenery created by the trees here. Let us have our lunch in this spot because it is already late and we are feeling hungry. Let the cows remain near us and let them drink water from the Yamuna. While we engage in our lunch taking, the cows may engage in eating the soft grasses that are in this spot."
On hearing this proposal from Krishna, all the boys became very glad and said, "Certainly, let us all sit down here to take our lunch." They then let loose the calves to eat the soft grass. Sitting down on the ground and keeping Krishna in the center, they began to open their lunch box brought from home. Lord Sri Krishna was seated in the center of the circle, and all the boys kept their face toward him. They ate and constantly enjoyed seeing Lord Krishna's face to face. Krishna appeared to be the whirl of the lotus flower, and the boys surrounded him appeared to be its different petals. The boys collected flowers, leaves, or flowers, and the bark of the trees and placed their lunch on them, as well as in their box, and thus they began to eat their lunch, keeping company with Krishna. While taking lunch, each boy began to manifest different kinds of relationship with Krishna, and they enjoyed each other's company with joking words. While Lord Krishna was thus enjoying lunch with his friends, his flute was pushed within the belt of his cloth on his right side, and the bugle and the cane were pushed it in on the left hand side of his cloth. In his left palm, he was holding a lump of food prepared with yogurt, butter, rice, and piece of fruits salad, which could be seen through his petal-like finger joints. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepted the result of all great sacrifice, was lunching and enjoying lunch with his friends in Vrindavan, and thus the scene was being observed by the demigods from heaven. As for the boys, they were simply enjoying transcendental bliss in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
At that time, the calves that were pasturing nearby entered into the deep forest, alluring by new grasses, and gradually went out of sight. When the boys saw that the calves were not nearby, they became afraid for their safety, and they immediately cried out, "Krishna! Krishna is the killer of awe of fear personified. Everyone is afraid of fear personified, but fear personified is afraid of Krishna." By crying out the word Krishna, the boys at once transcended the fearful situation. Out of his great affection, Krishna did not want his friends to give up their pleasing lunch engagement and go searching for the calves. He therefore said, "My dear friends, you need not interrupt your lunch. Go on enjoying. I am going personally to find the calves." Thus, Lord Krishna, still carrying the lump of yogurt and rice preparation in his left hand, immediately started to search out the calves in the caves and bushes. He searched in the mountain holes and in the forests, but nowhere could he find them.
At the time when Aghasura was killed and the demigods were looking on the incident with great surprise, Brahma, who was born of the lotus flower growing out of the navel of Vishnu, also came to see. He was surprised how a little boy like Krishna could act so wonderfully. Although he was informed that the little cowherd boy was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wanted to see more of the Lord's glorious pastimes. And thus he stole all the calves and cowherd boys and took them to a different place. Lord Krishna, therefore, in spite of searching for the calves, could not find them, and he even lost his boyfriends on the bank of the Yamuna, where they had been taking their lunch. In the form of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna was very little in comparison to Brahma, but because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could immediately understand that all the calves and boys had been stolen by Brahma. Krishna thought, Brahma has taken away all the boys and calves. How can I alone return to Vrindavan? The mothers will be aggrieved.
Therefore, in order to satisfy the mothers of his friends, as well as convince Brahmas of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, he immediately expanded himself as the cowherd boys and calves. In the Vedas, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already expanded himself into so many living entities by his energy. Therefore, it was not very difficult for him to expand himself again into so many boys and calves. He expanded himself to become exactly like the boys, who were all different features and facial and bodily constructions, and who were different in their clothing and ornaments, and in their behavior and personal activities. In other words, although each boy, being an individual soul, had entirely different states, activities, and behavior, Krishna exactly expanded himself into all the different positions of the individual boys. He also became the calves, who were also of the different sizes, colors, activities, etc. This was possible because everything is an expansion of Krishna's energy. In the Vishnu Purana, it is said, Parasaya Brahmana Shaktihi. We actually see in the cosmic manifestation, expansion of the energies of the Lord, as heat and light are the different expansion of fire.
Thus expanding himself as the boys and calves in their individual capacities and surrounded by such expansions of himself, Krishna entered the village of Vrindavan. The residents had no knowledge of what had happened. After entering the village of Vrindavan, all the calves entered their respective cowsheds and the boys went to their respective mothers and homes. The mothers of the boys heard the vibration of their flutes before their entrance, and to receive them, they came out of their homes and embraced them. And out of maternal affection, milk was flowing from their breasts, and they allowed the boys to drink it. However, their offering was not exactly to their boys, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had expanded himself in such boys. This was a chance for all the mothers of Vrindavan to feed the Supreme Personality of Godhead with their own milk. Therefore, not only did Krishna give Yashoda the chance to feed him, but this time he gave the chance to all the other elder gopis.
All the boys dealt with their mothers as usual, and the mothers also, on the approach of evening, bathed their respective children, decorated them with tilak and ornaments, and gave them necessary food after the day's labor. The cows also, who had been away in the pasturing ground, returned in the evening and called their respective calves. The calves immediately came to their mothers, and the mothers began to lick the bodies of the calves. These relations of the cows and the gopis with their calves and boys remained unchanged, although actually the original calves and boys were not there. Actually, the cows' affection for their calves and the elder gopis' affection for their boys causelessly increased. Their affection increased naturally, even though the calves and boys were not their offspring. Although the cows and elder gopis of Vrindavan had greater affection for Krishna than for their own offspring, after this incident, their affection for their offspring increased unlimitedly, exactly as it did for Krishna. For 1 year continuously, Krishna himself expanded as the calves and cowherd boys and was present in the pasturing ground.
As it is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna's expansion is situated in everyone's heart as the super soul. Similarly, instead of expanding himself as the super soul, he expanded himself as a portion of cows and cowherd boys for one continuous year. One day, a few days before a year had passed, Krishna and Balarama were maintaining the cows in the forest when they saw some cows grazing on the top of Govardhana hill. The cows could see down into the valley where the cows were being taken care of by the boys. Suddenly, on sighting the cows began to run towards them. They leaped downhill with joined front and rear legs. The cows were so melted with affection for the cows that they did not care about the rough path from the top of Govardhana hill down to the pasturing ground. They approached the cows with their milk bags full of milk, and by taking away his cows and boys, and they, like this page, no, this page came. And they raised their tails upward. When they were coming down the hill, their milk bags were pouring milk on the ground out of intense material affection for the cows. Although they were not their own cows, these cows had their own cows, and the cows that were grazing beneath the Govardhana hill were larger, and they were not expected to drink milk directly from the milk bags, but were satisfied with the grass. Yet, all the cows came immediately and began to lick their bodies, and the cows also began to suck milk from the milk bags. There appeared to be a great bond of affection between the cows and the cows.
When the cows were running down from the top of Golden Hill, the men who were taking care of them tried to stop them. Older cows are taken care of by the men, and the calves are taken care by the boys. And as far as possible, the calves are kept separate from the cows, so that the calves do not drink all the available milk. Therefore, the men who were taking care of the cows on the top of Golden Hill tried to stop them, but they failed. Baffled by their failure, they were feeling ashamed and angry. They were very unhappy. But when they came down and saw their children taking care of the calves, they all of a sudden became very affectionate toward the children. It was very astonishing. Although the men came down disappointed, baffled, and angry as soon as they saw their own children, their hearts melted with great affection. At once, their anger, dissatisfaction, and unhappiness disappeared. They began to show parental love for the children, and with great affection, they lifted them in their arms and embraced them. They began to smell their children's head and enjoy their company with great happiness. After the embracing their children, the men took the cows back to the top of the Golden Hill. Along the way, they began to think of their children, and affection. Tears fell from their eyes.
When Balram saw this extraordinary exchange of affection between the cows and the calves, and between the fathers and their children, when neither the calves nor the children needed so much care, he began to wonder why this extraordinary thing had happened. He was astonished to see all the residents of Vrindavan so affectionate to their own children, exactly as they had been to Krishna. Similarly, the cows had grown affectionate to the calves as much as to Krishna. Balram therefore concluded that the extraordinary show of affection was something mystical, either performed by the demigods or by some powerful man. Otherwise, how could this wonderful change take place? He concluded that this mystical change must have been caused by Krishna, whom Balram considered his worshipable personality of Godhead. He thought it was arranged by Krishna, and even I could not check its mystic power. Thus Balram understood that all those boys and calves were only expansions of Krishna.
Balaram inquired from Krishna about the actual situation. He said, "My dear Krishna, in the beginning I thought that all these calves and cowherd boys were either great sages and saintly persons or demigods, but at present it appears that they are actually your expansions. They are all you. You yourself are playing as the calves and boys. What is this mystery of this situation? Where have those other calves and boys gone? And why are you expanding yourself as the calves and boys? Will you kindly tell me what is the cause?" At the request of Balram, Krishna briefly explained the whole situation. How the calves and boys had been stolen by Brahma, and how Krishna was concealing the incident by expanding himself so people would not know that the original calves and boys were missing.
While Krishna and Balram were talking, Brahma returned after a moment's interval, according to duration of his life. We have information of Lord Brahma's duration of life from the Bhagavad-Gita, 1000 times of the duration of the 4 ages, or 1000 into 432,000 years, constitute Brahma's 12 years. Similarly, 1 moment of Brahma's time is equal to 1 year of our solar calculation. After 1 moment of Brahma's calculation, Brahma came back to see the fun caused by the stealing of the boys and calves. But he has also afraid that he was playing with the fire. Krishna was the master, and he had played mischief for fun by taking away his calves and boys. He was really anxious, so he did not stay away very long. He came back after a moment by his calculation. He saw that all the boys and calves were playing with the Krishna in the same way as when he had came upon them. Although he was confident that he had taken them and made them lie down asleep under the spell of his mystic power. Brahma began to think, all the boys and calves were taken away by me, and I know they are still sleeping. How is it that a similar batch of boys and calves is playing with Krishna? Is it that they are not influenced by my mystic power? Have they been playing continually for 1 year with Krishna? Brahma tried to understand who they were and how they were uninfluenced by his mystic power, but he could not ascertain it. In other words, he himself came under the spell of his own mystic power. The influence of his mystic power appeared like snow in darkness or a glowworm in the daytime. During the night's darkness, the glowworm can show some glittering power, and the snow piled up upon the top of a hill or on the ground can shine during the daytime. But at night, the snow has no silver glitter, nor does the glowworm have any illuminating power during the daytime. Similarly, when the small mystic power exhibited by Brahmas was before the mystic power of Krishna, it was just like snow at night or a glowworm during the day. When a man of small mystic power wants to show potency in the presence of greater mystic power, he diminishes his own influence. He does not increase it. Even such a great personality as Brahma, when he wanted to show his mystic power before Krishna, became ludicrous. Brahma was thus confused about his own mystic power.
In order to convince Brahma that all those calves and boys were not the original ones, the calves and boys who were playing with Krishna transformed into Vishnu forms. Actually, the original ones were sleeping under the spell of Brahma's mystic power, but the present ones, seen by Brahma, were all immediate expansions of Krishna or Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of Krishna, so Vishnu forms appeared before Brahma. All the Vishnu forms were of bluish color and dressed in yellow garments. All of them had 4 hands decorated with club, disc, lotus flower, and conch shell. On their heads were glittering golden helmets inlaid with jewels. They were bedecked with pearls, and earrings were garlanded with beautiful flowers. On their chest was the mark of Srivatsa. Their arms were decorated with armlets and other jewelry, and their necks were just like conch shells. Their legs were decorated with bells, their waist with golden bells, and their fingers with jeweled rings. Brahma also saw that upon the whole body of each Lord Vishnu, from the lotus feet up to the top of the head, fresh tulsi leaves and buds had been thrown. Another significant feature of the Vishnu forms was that all of them were looking transcendently beautiful. Their smiling resembled the moonshine, and their glancing resembled the early rising of the sun. Just by their glancing, they showed themselves to be the creators and maintainers of the mode of ignorance and passion. Vishnu represents the mode of goodness, Brahma represents the mode of passion, and the Lord Shiva represents the mode of ignorance. Therefore, as the maintainer of everything in the cosmic manifestation, Vishnu is also the creator and maintainer of Brahma and Lord Shiva.
After this manifestation of Lord Vishnu, Brahma saw that many other Brahmas and Shivas and demigods and even insignificant living entities down to the ants and very small straws, all moving and non-moving living entities, were dancing surrounding Lord Vishnu. Their dancing was accompanied by various kinds of music, and all of them were worshipping Lord Vishnu. Brahma realized that all those Vishnu forms were complete in mystic power, from the anima perfection of becoming small, like an atom, up to becoming infinite, like the cosmic manifestation. All the mystic powers of Brahma, Shiva, all the demigods, and the 24 elements of cosmic manifestation were fully represented in the person of Vishnu. By the influence of Lord Vishnu, all subordinate mystic powers were engaged in his worship. He was being worshipped by time, space, the cosmic manifestation, reformation, desire, activity, and the 3 reformation, desire, activity, and the 3 qualities of material nature. Lord Vishnu, Brahma, also realized is the reservoir of all truth, knowledge, and bliss. He is the combination of 3 transcendental features, namely eternity, knowledge, and bliss, and he is the object of worship by the followers of the Upanishads.
Brahma realized that all the different forms of the boys and cows transformed into Vishnu forms were not transferred by a mysticism of the type that a yogi or a demigod can display by specific powers invested in him. The cows and the boys transformed into Vishnu Murtis or Vishnu forms were not display of Vishnu Maya or Vishnu's energy, but were Vishnu himself. The respective qualification of Vishnu and Vishnu Maya are just like the fire and heat. In the heat, there is a qualification of fire, namely warmth, and yet heat is not fire. The manifestation of the Vishnu forms of the boys and the cows were not like the heat, but was rather the fire. They were all actually Vishnu. Factually, the qualification of Vishnu is full truth, full knowledge, and full bliss. Another example can be given with material objects which are reflected in many forms. For example, the sun is reflected in many water pots, but the reflection of the sun in the many pots are not actually the sun. There is no actual heat or light from the suns in the pots, although they appear like the sun. But the forms which Krishna assumed were each and every one full Vishnu. The specific word used in this connection is Satya Jnana Ananta Nanda. Satya means truth, Jnana means full knowledge, Ananta unlimited, and Ananda full bliss.
The glories of Supreme Personality of Godhead are so great that the impersonalist followers of the Upadeshas cannot reach the platform of knowledge to understand them, especially the transcendental form of the Lord, are beyond the reach of the impersonalists, who can only understand through studying the Upadeshas that the absolute truth is not matter or is not mentally restricted. From Krishna's expansion into Vishnu form, Lord Brahma could understand by his limited potency that everything movable and immovable within the cosmos manifestation is the extent due to the expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord. When Brahma was thus standing baffled in his limited power and consciousness of his limited activities within the 11th sense, he could realize that he was also creation of the material energy, just like a puppet. As a puppet has no independent power to dance, but dance according to the direction of the puppeteer master. Of the soul, the demigods and the living entity are all subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is stated in the Chaitanya Charamita, the only master is Krishna, and all other are his servants. The whole world is under the waves of the material spill, and beings are floating like the straw in the water. So their struggle for extent is continuing. But as soon as one becomes conscious that he is the internal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this Maya or illusion struggle for extent is immediately stopped.
Lord Brahma, who has full control over the goddess of learning and who is considered to be the best authority in Vedic knowledge, was thus perplexed, being unable to understand the extraordinary power manifested by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the mundane world, even a personality like Brahma is unable to understand the mystic power of the Supreme Lord. Not only did Brahma fail to understand, but he was perplexed even to see the display which was being manifested by Krishna before him. Krishna took compassion upon Brahma because of his inability to see how Krishna was displaying the forms of Vishnu and transforming himself into calves and cowherd boys. And thus, while fully manifesting the Vishnu expansions, he suddenly pulled his curtain of Yogamaya over the scene. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not visible due to the curtain spread by Yogamaya. That which covers the reality is Mahamaya, or the external energy, which does not allow conditioned soul to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead beyond the cosmic manifestation. But the energy which partially manifests the Supreme Personality of Godhead and partially does not allow one to see is called Yogamaya. Brahma is not an ordinary conditioned soul. He is far superior to all the other demigods, and yet he could not comprehend the display of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Krishna willingly stopped manifesting any further potency. The conditioned soul not only becomes bewildered but is completely unable to understand. The curtain of Yogamaya was drawn so that Brahma would not become more and more perplexed.
When Brahma was relieved from his perplexity, he appeared to awaken from an almost dead state, and he began to open his eyes with great difficulty. Thus he could see the external cosmic manifestation with common eyes. He saw all around him the super excellent view of Vrindavan, full with trees, which is the source of life for all living entities. He could appreciate the transcendental land of Vrindavan, where all the living entities are transcendental to ordinary nature. In the forest of Vrindavan, even ferocious animals like tigers live peacefully, along with the deer and human beings. He could understand that because of the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vrindavan is transcendental to all other places and is free of lust and greed. Brahma thus found Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing the part of a small cowherd boy. He saw that little child with a lump of food in his left hand, searching out his friends and calves, just as he had actually been doing 1 year before, after their disappearance.
Immediately, Brahma descended from his great swan carrier and fell down before the Lord just like a golden stick. The word used among the Vaishnavas for offering respect is dandavat. This word means falling down like a stick. One should offer respect to the superior Vaishnava by falling down straight with his body just like a stick. So Brahma fell down before the Lord just like a stick to offer respect. And because the complexion of Brahma's golden, he appeared to be like a golden stick lying down before Lord Krishna. All the four helmets of Brahma touched the lotus feet of Krishna. Brahma, being very joyful, began to shed tears, and he washed the lotus feet of Krishna with his tears. Repeatedly he fell and rose as he recalled the wonderful activities of the Lord. After repeating obeisances for a long time, Brahma stood up and smeared his hands over his eyes, seeing the Lord before him. He, trembling, began to offer prayers with great respect, humility, and attention. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 30th chapter of Krishna, the stealing of the boys and calves by
Chapter 14 Prayers offered by Lord Brahma to Lord Krishna. Brahma said, "My dear Lord, you are the only worshipable Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, I am offering my humble obeisances and prayers just to please you. Your bodily features are the color of clouds filled with water. You are glittering with a silver electric aura emanating from your yellow garments. Let me offer my respectful repeated obeisances unto the son of Maharaj Nanda, who is standing before me with conch shell earrings and a peacock feather on his head. His face is beautiful. He is wearing a helmet and is garlanded with forest flowers, and he stands with a morsel of food in his hand. He is decorated with a cane, a buffalo horn bugle, and a flute. He stands before me with small lotus feet. My dear Lord, people may say that I am the master of all Vedic knowledge and I am supposed to be the creator of this universe, but it has been proved now that I cannot understand you, who are present before me just like a child. You are playing with your boyfriends and cows, which might imply that you do not even have sufficient education. You are appearing just like a village boy carrying your food in your hand and searching for your calves. And yet, there is so much difference between your body and mine that I cannot estimate the potency of your body. As I have already stated in the Brahma Samhita, your body is not material.
In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the body of the Lord is all spiritual. There is no difference between the Lord's body and his self. Each limb of his body can perform the actions of all the others. The Lord can see with his hands. He can hear with his eyes. He can accept offerings with his legs. And he can create with his mouth. Brahma continued, "Your appearance as a cowherd child is for the benefit of the devotees, and although I have committed an offense at your lotus feet by stealing away your boys and calves, I can understand that you have bestowed your mercy upon me." This shows your transcendental quality of being very affectionate toward your devotees. But in spite of your great affection for me, I cannot estimate the potency of your bodily activities. It is to be understood that when I, Lord Brahma, the Supreme Personality of this universe, cannot estimate the childlike body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then what to speak of others? And if I cannot estimate the spiritual potency of your childlike body, then what can I understand about your transcendental pastimes? Therefore, as it is said in the Bhagavad-Gita, anyone who can understand a little of the transcendental pastimes, appearance and disappearance of the Lord becomes immediately eligible to enter into the kingdom of God after quitting the material body. This statement is confirmed in the Vedas, where it is stated, simply by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can overcome the chain of repeated birth and death. I therefore recommend that people should not try to understand you by their speculative knowledge.
The base process for understanding you is to submissively give up the speculative process and try to hear about you, either from yourself, as you have given statements in the Bhagavad-Gita and many similar Vedic scriptures, or from a realized devotee who has taken shelter at your lotus feet. One has to hear from a devotee without speculation. One doesn't even need to change his worldly position. He simply has to hear your message. Although you are not understandable by the material senses, simply by hearing about you, one can gradually conquer the nuisance of misunderstanding. By your own grace only, you become revealed to a devotee. You are unconquerable by any other means. Speculative knowledge without any trace of devotional service is simply a useless waste of time in the search for you. Devotional service is so important that even a little attempt can raise one to the highest perfectional platform. One should not therefore neglect this auspicious process of devotional service and take to the speculative method. By the speculative method, one may gain partial knowledge of your cosmic manifestation, but it is not possible to understand you, the origin of everything. The attempt of persons who are interested only in the speculative knowledge is simply wasted labor, like the labor of a person who attempts to gain something by beating an empty husk of rice paddy. A little quantity of paddy can be husked by the grinding wheel, and one can gain some grains of rice. But if the skin of the paddy has already been beaten by the grinding wheel, there is no further gain in beating even a large quantity of the husk. It is simply useless labor.
My dear Lord, there are many instances in the history of a human society where a person, after failing to achieve the transcendental platform, engages himself in devotional service with his body, mind, and words, and thus attain the highest perfection stage of entering into your abode. The process of understanding you by speculative or mystic meditation are all useless without devotional service. One should therefore engage himself in your devotional service in the worldly activities, and one should always keep himself near you by the process of hearing and chanting your transcendent glories. Simply by being attached to hearing and chanting your glories, one can attain the highest perfection stage of entering into your kingdom. If a person therefore always keeps in touch with you by hearing and chanting your glories, and you offer the result of his work for your satisfaction only, he very easily and happily attains entrance into your supreme abode. You are reachable by the persons who have cleansed their heart of all contamination. This cleaning of the heart is made possible by chanting and hearing the glories of your Lordship.
The Lord is all pervading. As it is stated by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita, everything is sustained by me, but at the same time I am not in everything. Since the Lord is all pervading, there is nothing existing without His knowledge. The all pervasive nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be within the limited knowledge of a living entity. Therefore, a person who has attained steadiness of the mind by fixing the mind on the lotus feet of the Lord is able to understand the Supreme Lord to some extent. It is the business of the mind to wander over varied subject matter for sense gratification. Therefore, only a person who always engages the senses in the service of the Lord can control the mind and be fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus, concentration of the mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord is called samadhi. Until one reaches the stage of samadhi or trance, he cannot understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There may be some philosophers or scientists who can study the cosmic nature from atom to atom. They may be so advanced that they can count the atomic composition of the cosmic atmosphere, or all the planets and stars in the sky, or even the shining molecular particles of the sun, or of the stars and other luminaries in the sky. But it is not possible to count the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
As described in the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, the Supreme Person is the origin of all qualities. He is generally called Nirguna. Nirguna means whose qualities are beyond estimation. Guna means quality and Nir means beyond estimation. But impersonalists interpret this word Nirguna as having no quality. Because they are unable to estimate the qualities of the Lord in transcendental realization, they conclude that the Supreme Lord has no qualities. But that is actually not the position. The real position is that He is the original source of all qualities. All qualities are emanating constantly from Him. How, therefore, can a limited person count the qualities of the Lord? One may estimate the qualities of the Lord at one moment, but the next moment the qualities have increased, so it is not possible to make an estimation of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. He is therefore called Nirguna.
One should not uselessly labor in mental speculation to estimate the Lord's qualities. Therefore, There is no need of adopting the speculative method or exercising the body to attain mystic yoga perfection. One should simply understand that the distress and happiness of this body are predestined. There is no need to try to avoid the distress of this bodily existence or to attempt to achieve happiness by different types of exercises. The best course is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead with body, mind, and words and always be engaged in His service. This transcendental labor is fruitful, but other attempts to understand the absolute truth are never successful. Therefore, an intelligent man does not try to understand the supreme truth by a speculative or mystic power. Rather, he engages in devotional service and depends on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows that whatever may happen to this body is due to his past fruitive activities. If one lives such a simple life in devotional service, then automatically he inherits the transcendental abode of the Lord. Actually, every living entity is part and parcel of Supreme Personality of Godhead and Son of the Godhead. Each has the natural right to inherit the share and transcendental pleasure of the Lord. But due to the contact of matter, conditional living entities have been practically disinherited. If one adopts the simple method of engaging himself in devotional service, automatically he becomes eligible to be freed from the material contamination and elevate to the transcendental position of associating with the Supreme Lord.
Lord Brahma presented himself to Lord Krishna as the most presumptuous living creature because he wanted to examine the wonder of his personal power. He stole the boys and calves of the Lord in order to see how the Lord would recover them. Now Lord Brahma admitted that his attempt was most presumptuous, for he was attempting to test his energy before the person of original energy. Coming to his senses, Lord Brahma saw that although he was a very powerful living creature in the estimation of all other living creatures within this material world, his power was nothing in comparison with the power energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The scientists of the material world have invented wonders such as atomic weapons, and when tested in a city or some insignificant place on this planet, such powerful weapons create so-called havoc. But if the atomic weapons are tested on the sun, what is their significance? They are insignificant there. Similarly, Brahma's stealing of the calves and boys from Sri Krishna may be a wonderful display of mystic power, but when Sri Krishna exhibited his expansive power in so many calves and boys and maintained them without effort, Brahma could understand that his own power was insignificant. Brahma addressed Lord Krishna as Achyuta because the Lord is never forgetful of a little service rendered by his devotee. He is so kind and affectionate toward his devotee that a little service by them is accepted by him as a great deal. Brahma has certainly rendered much service to the Lord. As the Supreme Personality in charge of this particular universe, he is, without a doubt, a faithful servant of Krishna. Therefore, he could appease Krishna. He asked that the Lord understand him as a subordinate servant whose little mistake and impotence might be excused. He admitted that he was puffed up with his powerful position as Lord Brahma because he is qualitative incarnation of the mode of passion within this material world. This was natural for him and therefore he committed the mistake. But Lord Brahma hoped that since he was after all Lord Krishna's subordinate, the Lord would kindly take compassion upon him and excuse him for his gross mistake.
So this concludes our 1 hour of reading to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for letting us come and read your Krishna book to you. And as always, let us conclude by offering our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnavadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachadi Shatarane, and to each other. Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book. So we'll continue with the prayers offered by Lord Brahma to Lord Krishna next week. And everyone can come and get some Mahaprasadam.